Hey guys, in this week's Casually Criterion episode, we are going to review Ace in the Hole, spine number 396. But before that, we're going to talk briefly about Quiet Place, Day 1. So, join us!
Hello and welcome to the Casual Cinecast, powered by Cinelinks, the show where we talk about the TV and movies we've been watching, as well as do a deep dive review of a current movie or a classic film from the Criterion Collection as voted on by the listener via X/Twitter. This is one of those Criterion episodes, which we like to call Casually Criterion episodes. The film that won our last listener poll was Ace in the Hole, spine number 396. My name is Justin, and with me is a $1,000 a day podcaster, but we're getting him for free. Mike, how you doing?
Doing good. I'm glad. Thanks for asking. Thanks for having me. I decided to do this because you're a man that I trust, because you're a careful man, because you wear both a belt and suspenders.
That's right. I do. And a bolo tie.
Yeah. So,
which is irrelevant to pant support, but is still true nonetheless.
But very important to style.
Yeah. So, how you doing, man? You doing well?
I'm doing good. Pretty good. Doing well, I suppose. I just hadn't really been watching a lot this week. Just a couple things, but excited nonetheless to talk about this.
Yeah, I haven't been watching much that would be new to talk about because the main thing I've been doing is I finally got my wife to watch The Boys, and so we've been kind of plowing through that, which I've seen all of that before. So just been rewatching that with her, rewatching more Clone Wars, and that's pretty much it. Nothing news on the mind worthy for me.
Yeah, basically the same. The fiance started a new reality show, but I don't really care about that.
Which one?
Basically the same one, but just the UK version. What was the name of that show?
Love is Blind?
Love is Blind, yes. The Love is Blind UK is what it's called. So
okay. Well, and then I think I know what it's about.
Yeah. Then you get it, I'm sure, immediately.
Cool. Well, okay. Well, we have a light episode, so if there's anything you want to do a quick 5 minutes on, or if not, I guess we could go into News on the March if you're ready.
No, I think I could save all my 5-minute bits for News on the March.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, then let's go.
All right.
News on the March!
All right, we're in News on the March. Mike,
we are.
Kick us off.
Yeah, so recently I decided to catch up on a movie that I did not get to see in theaters because I just didn't. And that is A Quiet Place, Day 1. Yes.
Yes, I've only seen the first Quiet Place. I never even saw the second, so.
I enjoyed the second one, I think, more than the first one.
Oh, really?
I don't know if that's an unpopular opinion or if it's just like a regular opinion. I'm not really sure what the consensus is on that, but
I'm not sure either because I don't know that I even really heard much thought from anywhere on Quiet Place Part 2, like even when it came out.
Yeah, I think it pleased the people that went to go see it and didn't. I don't know if it attracted new fans to the franchise or what, but in my opinion, Quiet Place Part 2 is superior to Quiet Place Part 1, but they're both pretty decent, I think. You know, they're not my favorite movies, but I think they're a good time, generally.
Yeah, I like the first one well enough.
Yeah. So anyways, that's kind of what I was expecting from A Quiet Place Day 1. And I guess you could, on second thought, no, I don't really like this movie.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and I don't hate it either. I don't want to go out on a limb and say, like, if you liked the first two, then this one's going to be trash. Like, I don't think that. I think most people will probably like it. I just think this movie makes some unnecessary, weird decisions that are, like, ultimately more distracting than they are, like interesting. Like, for example, the main character of this movie is played by Lupita Nyong'o, who is great. She plays a cancer patient. And so she is dying. That is like kind of her. That's where at the very beginning with her character is that she's in hospice or something like that. And anyways, she has a cat on a leash that she carries around throughout the movie. And I guess it's like her support cat or something. But I find this decision to be baffling and distracting. Because
it's just going to give her away all the time?
Well, yeah, throughout the whole movie, they're all trying to be quiet or sneak around or whatever. And they're either carrying this cat's just chilling in their arms, or just like walking next to them, which is fine. I guess some cats can do that, but I've never seen a cat do that in real life.
Yeah.
You know, like, granted, I've never seen monsters in real life, so I don't know what a cat would do. But you know what I mean? I've never seen a cat that can be walked and act like I don't even see dogs that would be that calm, you know? So I just find it really baffling and strange that they made the decision to put this cat in this movie through so many of these intense action sequences that involve having no noise whatsoever happening.
Sure. But I guess I could kind of see that, because I felt a bit that way about the decision to be pregnant or in the first one, although I can't remember if she was pregnant already in the first one, like when everything started, or if
I don't remember. I believe that was the case.
Okay. Yeah. Well, then maybe she didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
For some reason, I was thinking it would have been like they were living like that for like years.
No, I don't think so. I mean, maybe, but I don't know.
Then never mind.
Yeah. Yeah, but anyways, so just like things like that, it's like, I don't know, none of the performances are bad. Everyone's good in this. It's also got the guy from Stranger Things season 4 that's going to be in the Fantastic Four, whose name escapes me right now.
I don't know.
He's all the rage.
All the rage?
Yeah, he's like popular right now. He's like blowing up. Damn it.
Okay. He's new to Stranger Things, because I've only seen part of the first season.
No, yeah, I mean, yeah, he was in just the most recent season, and then that's it. Joseph Quinn, there we go.
There you go.
Yeah, he's the new Human Torch in Fantastic Four. Anyway, he's really big right now. Everyone in the world knows who he is, except for Justin, it seems.
Yeah, I'm gonna look him up, see if I recognize him.
He looks like what Zuckerberg wishes he looked like.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I could see that. Apparently he's an Overlord, which I saw, but I don't know if I remember.
I saw that movie, and I don't remember him in that, but that's fine. Anyways, so I don't know, Quiet Place Day One, it seems like it's got all the trappings of a Quiet Place movie, but for me, none of like the heart. It just feels sort of like a cash grab. I don't know. They're not doing anything new with the story. Granted, we're following different characters, and there may be some tie-in down the road. Like they may have like a Quiet Place, like Avengers team-up style movie or something down the road. But as of right now, I don't think it added anything to the story that like you know what I mean? I don't know. Nothing new to the lore. No, at least nothing interesting to me.
That's what I was going to ask. Like, does it add anything that makes you recontextualize anything from part 1 and 2?
Not really, other than just like it seems like most of it started in cities and then worked its way out from there because cities are the loudest, you know?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, sensible. Yeah. I mean, I think what I enjoyed the most about the first one was jumping in at the point where our characters have adapted to this already, and like seeing the process of going through day-to-day life of like how they live in this world, right, was maybe, or that seemed more interesting to me, and does seem more interesting to me than like them just attacking and not being able to figure it out, and then trying to go from our noisy, chaotic world to nothing it's not uninteresting, but I like the idea of living in that world already.
Yeah. Right. I know what you mean. And this has a little bit of that. Like, people adapt pretty quickly, but to me, I agree with you. Kind of like what was so appealing about, especially the first A Quiet Place, was seeing how this one family adapted and what they did to keep some semblance of like normalcy and life and growing up and surviving while this like crazy threat was happening.
Mm-hmm.
This one, you know, it's like two strangers that just sort of like find each other and just decide to sort of bond together. I don't know. It's whatever. It's like, it's not a terrible movie by any means. It's just, it didn't do a lot for me personally. So I can't say that I recommend it unless you want to see it, in which case I say, if you want to, then go for it.
Yeah. We will see for me. I've never bothered with part 2. So
I'd watch that one before this one.
Yeah. Well, I would definitely.
So when A Quiet Place 4 comes out or whatever, and there's a crossover and I need to watch this one, then maybe catch up. But
yeah, I would do it that way just for completionists' sake.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't know what your thoughts are, but like, I know it's a prequel. So like, technically there's probably not any reason I couldn't watch it first, but in these situations, I'm more of like I want to watch it in the order that it was chronologically released.
Right. You usually can't go wrong there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
otherwise,
that's another
I feel
thing
weird
about this movie. Real quick, I feel like they showed too much of the monsters. I feel like less is more with the monsters.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they already showed us a lot in Quiet Places Part 1 and 2, but I feel like this one, they're on display in like full daylight all the time, you know?
Yeah. Well, maybe they just figured the people watching this have seen the first 2, so they don't have anything to hide.
Maybe. Fair enough, but I don't know. I feel like the monsters look a little goofy, so sometimes the less is more in that.
Yeah. Well, I would guess that this one has like a bigger budget probably than the first one.
Yeah, I mean, the first 2 made money, so yeah.
And they had to, work with what they had and what they could do in terms of CG. And that sometimes those like limitations and those constraints can make you do more creative and better things.
Yeah.
That's my guess.
I agree.
Cool. Well, anything else?
It's often the case with a lot of classic movies like that. No, nothing else. I am ready to move on. Now, I said at the top of the show that's all we would be talking about in News on the March, but since last time we recorded, I watched the movie that Justin talked about last time in News on the March, which is Trap by M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah.
My fiance and I went to go see that movie. And yeah, so we thought we'd have a little follow-up conversation here.
Yeah, we can have a real discussion now instead of having to tiptoe around like things that you don't know,
Sure.
But I guess for a quick recap on me, that I was pretty underwhelmed by the movie. Like there were parts that I enjoyed, but ultimately I was just kind of middle of the road on the movie. I think I gave it 3 out of 5.
I believe that's correct.
As a quick recap, that's where I was last week.
Yeah.
So, Mike, where are you at? What are your thoughts?
So I will be spoiler free real quick, and then I'll give a little warning, and then you could jump ahead if you don't want to know anything about Trap. I will say on the 1 out of 5 scale, this is sitting at a 2.5 for me. It's not terrible by any means. There's parts of this movie that I think are very inspired, very Hitchcockian, or very like Brian De Palma. Mm-hmm. That's this movie at its best. That's M. Night Shyamalan at his best, generally. And then there's, I don't know, scenes where people talk and exposition happens and characters interact, and then, I don't know, things just feel wrong. Things just feel like false, or they ring untrue. Their lines are delivered in a way that feel weird, or the lines in general just feel weird. Or I don't know, or it feels like certain people don't know how like police work or like how concerts work, that wrote this movie. So there are things like that I think keep me at a distance from it. But there's a central performance from Josh Hartnett that I think is really good. The supporting cast I think is really good. There are some great shots in this. There's some good tension. All in all, I say it's a fun time at the movies. I had a good time at the movies.
Yeah.
You know, I would rate my experience watching this with my fiance, talking about it. I would rate that whole experience a 4 out of 5. But the movie, 2.5 out of 5. If that makes sense, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Because
it's not a hard watch. It's not taxing. It's fun. It's just not that good.
Yeah. I think it's definitely more of a hindsight feeling for me. Because I think when I walked out of the theater, I was ready to give it a good 3.5.
Yeah, it's a fun time.
A good time. But the more I kind of just sat there and thought about it and, picked it apart to an extent, I just kind of kept thinking of things that rubbed me the wrong way, that I didn't quite like, that I just found either too unbelievable to dismiss, or just like too odd. Like I don't know if you're talking about the same thing, but there's a couple of moments where if I remember correctly, we almost cut to like a POV shot from like a character watching another character talk. And I remember this distinctly there's like a merch guy talking to Josh Hartnett at one point, and it cuts to like the merch guy's POV, and it's almost like Josh Hartnett's looking down like the barrel of the camera.
Yeah.
Delivering some lines in a really weird way. Things like that just, they would kind of take me out of any tension that I was building.
Yeah. I don't know that I feel like the lines were delivered in a weird way. I feel like everyone's doing what they can. I feel like the lines are just a little clunky. Like almost no conversation that one character has with another character feels entirely like authentic. even in that movie language kind of way. It just feels weird. I guess let's get into specifics now. But anyway, that's where I'm at. It's a good time, but it's like, if we're being realistic, it's not that good of a movie. I think the same thing is true of Old, and I think the same thing is true of a lot of M. Night Shyamalan's movies. You know, they're both simultaneously good and bad. So,
yeah. And I think we made this point last week that there's usually enough good that I'm always down to check out the next.
Yeah. Can't wait for the next M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Just in case.
Yeah.
Just in case like he really hits it out of the park, because there's always enough promise.
Right.
So, spoilers.
Yeah. Spoilers for Trap starting now. Skip ahead if you do not want to know anything. Everything's timestamped.
Yeah.
Okay, so spoilers. Yeah, I don't think the conversations, like the interactions between Josh Hartnett and the merch guy, worked very well. I don't think the police profiler lady worked very well.
No. I think she was my least favorite element. You know?
She just felt undercooked, in my opinion.
Yeah. And like with a character like that you're not following very closely, like she's mostly off camera and we're not seeing anything from her point of view. When we're doing that, sometimes it feels a little convenient for the script to have that character know everything and us not really know that character well enough to understand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like she's kind of a step ahead of him. Everything he thinks of, like, oh, they've already thought of that because they're such a good criminal profiler, and
right.
It's just a little clunky.
Yeah, well, I think the whole premise is like this premise, to even buy into it, like you have to go in trying to suspend your disbelief, right? Like,
yeah,
this premise on the very surface of it is ridiculous.
Right. For me, in the sense that it endangers a lot of innocent people.
And the amount of manpower it would create, like that many cops like on duty right there in that location, like nothing else is happening in the rest of the city, I hope, like
right.
They're just hanging out for 4 hours during a concert on a Sunday afternoon. I don't know.
Plus all the training. And
it just feels like unrealistic that like logistically this could be pulled off, especially when they have like they're just looking for profiling. They're just pulling people out. Like what are they going to
Yeah.
do if they find him? They're not going to have any evidence. Like what? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
So what's their plan? Just to like, you know what I mean? I don't know. Like,
because they don't even know who it is. It's just like, it is a male at this concert.
right. So
that
it's like,
is granted, maybe it's only 20 to 30% male. So, okay, but still, it's like, it's pretty vague. But I do remember at some point they mention a tattoo that he's supposed to have, and I can't remember if they ever go into how they know about his tattoo. That confused me a little bit.
yeah, I don't remember. But anyways, I don't know. The whole thing's just a little ridiculous, but it's kind of fun. That's like the fun element about it, is trying to buy into the premise, you know?
Right. Yes.
And I think Josh Hartnett's performance is fun, and like even the cheekiness of the humor and the dialogue. Okay, sure, but I don't know. I feel like it just kind of outstays its welcome by the third act. Like all the goodwill that I did have to overlook some of those things early on in the movie, just sort of went away. I don't know, and I think the performance from the actress who plays the singer is
it's M. Night Shyamalan's
daughter, correct?
right?
I think she's actually like, she's all right. She's not great, but she's all right.
Yeah,
But I think
didn't have any issue really.
no, not really. But I don't know, from a script standpoint, like structurally for the story, like I don't know that I wanted to follow this character through the third act. You know?
Right. Yeah. Basically, for me, like the movie started to wear a little thin once they leave the concert. You know?
Yeah.
That's kind of the turning point for me, where I was like, okay.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
like Red Eye.
this
Remember
is
that movie
gonna be
Red Eye
difficult.
with Cillian Murphy and
Yeah,
Rachel
yeah, yeah.
McAdams?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Once
like
they get off the plane.
yeah, it's like once they get off the plane, it's like in the movie, what are we doing?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
the third act of Speed.
Right. I'll maintain that Speed is good.
I mean, Speed handles the third act better than I think the other examples, including this movie that we listed. But anyways, I don't know. It's a mostly fun time. If you like M. Night Shyamalan, you'll probably have a good time with it.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't, then you probably will feel the same way you feel about his other movies, I think.
Yeah. I'd say so. I think, yeah, it's definitely it's a movie about a serial killer, and they're pretty vague on like the violence and details, because it is like a PG-13 movie, which is kind of cool, but it is still pretty dark in places.
Sure. I think Josh Hartnett's really sinister when he wants to be, and that's cool.
Yeah, and like he definitely at times feels like he's in a rated R movie, which is neat. But then like, you get things like and I don't have a huge problem with this, but like the end tag where we cut back and we see the merch guy watching the news.
Yeah.
And he's like, I helped him. Oh my, like that feels like a very different movie,
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of just a small like encapsulation of.
Yeah. I think that's the thing that maybe is true of all M. Night Shyamalan's movies, and why everyone kind of always talks about it. Like, I feel like sometimes that guy, he's really great at like visual storytelling in a lot of ways, like building suspense, making things scary, making things really pop. But one thing I don't think he's ever been particularly good at is balancing tone. Like, I think he understands intellectually that when you have dark stuff in a script, you need some humor to balance it out. That's a common thing that scripts do. But I don't think he's ever quite mastered the throwaway like joke, where the audience is supposed to chuckle and then like move on and continue back with like the seriousness of the plot. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Maybe he's not funny.
Maybe. I mean, I just think like he's never been able to quite master shifting tones. And I think that's what confuses people. Like, I think when The Happening came out, people didn't realize that a lot of that movie was supposed to be hokey.
Yeah.
And I feel like it was really obvious, but a lot of people I don't think understood that about the movie.
Yeah.
And so I don't think he's good at portraying, I don't think he's good at balancing tones the way he needs to be to do some of the stuff that he likes to try.
Yeah. And I'm not sure what that is. I'm not sure if that's like, I mean, I would never accuse him of like lacking confidence, because that would be silly.
No, he seems fearless, and I like that about him.
Yeah. but the movie, yeah, it doesn't seem to be able to like take you with it in its tonal swings. At least this one and the Shyamalan movies that I have seen, which isn't all of them, but
yeah. He's done a lot. He's very prolific.
Yeah, I do keep meaning to go to old though, because I find that, like I said, there's always enough good that I want to watch everything just in case this is the home run. Because I imagine like the home run Shyamalan film, which is some might argue that Signs and Sixth Sense are that, or Unbreakable.
Right. Many people do.
But I don't know that I would consider any of those a home run for me personally, like a total movie that I just love.
Yeah, there's always something a little weird.
Yeah. But like the movie that for me ends up being a home run, like I think could just be so cool. And so I'm in. I need to watch Old is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think you do. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. But anyways, anything else we want to say about Trap?
One last question. So while we're in spoilery territory, I feel like one of the most like insane moments where I was really taken out of the movie was when they're arresting Josh Hartnett at the very, very end, and his daughter shows back up, and his daughter's running to hug him, and I think it's like the profiler lady's like, let her go see him, and I'm like, no, he's a serial killer.
Yeah, why?
Why would you let her let her go through and like hug her dad? Like, why are we having this like? That's a thing. Like, I just don't understand. Like, why does she have this heart for him at all? And why is no one really concerned about the daughter? Yeah. It was a weird moment to me where I was just like, what? No.
Yeah. At that point, I didn't even remember that part, but yeah, I mean, you're right. You're absolutely right about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know that.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like it happens because they want the tragic moment of the daughter hugging him. Right. Like as he's getting
happened
arrested.
For us to see it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I kind of understand emotionally why it needs to happen for the movie, but
I think it'd have been more emotional if she would have just tried to run up and hug him and then she was stopped.
Yeah. And she couldn't say goodbye to him. Or
and then
like that,
then there was like a moment of realization coming over her face that she might never touch her father again, you know?
Yeah. That would be tragic, but I'm not sure that this movie is that interested in being tragic.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
No, probably not.
Seems more like being cool and like, whoa.
Yeah.
Last thing, maybe.
Okay.
This, to me, did not have any sort of, twist or anything to like really spoil in that sense. Like, to me, this was pretty straightforward. Was there anything like that you can think of that was... Has he mostly abandoned that sort of like Shyamalan twist that like his first like 4 to 5 movies were
like
I think
the
so.
reason
you
he
went
doesn't
to
have
watch
a twist in everything now.
Yeah.
But if I was going to say what it turns the premise on its head, it would be like the third act and starting to follow the pop star.
Yeah.
Like Lady Raven or whatever her name is. But I don't know that counts. But it's something that changed that I did not appreciate necessarily.
Yeah, I don't think that counts as like a twist or anything.
No, then I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so either. I guess like I did find myself occasionally waiting for that like other shoe to drop and to be like, okay, this changes things. This changes my perspective on whatever, you know. Right. Especially when like the movie advertises itself as like there's a trap set for Josh Hartnett because he's a serial killer, and you're like, okay. Yeah, there's got to be more to that because like you can't tell me that before I walk in the door and then leave it at that. But it kind of does. Which
I mean, it's pretty straightforward in that sense.
Yeah, that's not a criticism. It's just a fact.
Yeah, just an observation.
Yeah. Okay, that is genuinely my last thing.
All right. Well, I'm glad you said it. Okay. Here we go. Now time for our review of Ace in the Hole, spine number 396, starting now.
Beneath this sinister mountain, a man is buried alive, trapped by a cave-in. And from every part of a shocked and anxious nation, the crowds stream to watch the desperate rescue crews fighting against time, battering their way to the barrier of solid rock, while far below, a daring reporter makes his way into the treacherous, crumbling tunnel that is the only lifeline between the helpless victim and the outside world.
You'll be out of here by tomorrow morning.
No, I won't. They'll never reach me by tomorrow morning.
You'll be out of here in 12 hours. Hang on.
Phony, below the belt journalism, that's what it is.
Not below the belt, right in the gut, Mr. Boot. Human interest.
All right, so as always with our Criterion films, we will not be doing our spoiler-free section up front like we do for our newer films. These are films that have typically been out for a while, years, if not decades and decades. This one came out in the 50s, so you've had plenty of time to watch it. So consider this your spoiler alert, your warning. If you have not seen Ace in the Hole and you don't want anything spoiled, pause the podcast now, go watch the movie, and then come back and finish listening.
That's right. Ace in the Hole was directed by Billy Wilder. It stars Kirk Douglas, Jan Sterling, and Robert Arthur. The IMDb synopsis says, frustrated former journalist Chuck Tatum, now working for an Albuquerque newspaper, exploits a story about Trading Post owner Leo Mendoza trapped in a cave to rekindle Chuck's career. But the story soon escalates into a media circus.
Yes. It's long. I lost... Yeah. I'm wondering if anybody hasn't seen the movie, if they followed that.
Yeah, it was a weird sentence. It took me a minute. I had to read it, and I was like, whoa, okay, all right.
Yeah, and I don't think that's your fault. I've seen the movie. I watched it last night, and I had trouble following that.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad it wasn't just me. I wasn't even going to comment on it, but you were listening, and unless I just read it very poorly.
You were reading, so you weren't quite as honed in as to maybe how awkward
I was just focused on navigating that treacherous sentence, And
at that point, I felt like I had to call it out.
Yeah,
but
well, it's appreciated all the same.
Yeah, called out. So moving on. Mike, I believe this was your choice for the poll, right?
Yes, I believe you are correct.
As is tradition, I think, for the last 6 months, I feel like.
No, you had that whole episode where you commented on how good it felt to win that one.
Yeah, that one. Exactly. Yeah, the exception that proves the rule.
Yeah. Well, you got to pick some bangers this week, and so maybe...
I know. Well, yeah, pick the biggest movies, regardless of whether I like them or want to watch them.
Yeah, just pick one the people want to see.
Yeah. Okay. But anyways, so, this is yours, right?
Yeah. I will go first with my thoughts.
All right.
This is, I believe, my third time to see this movie, but the first time in easily over 12 or 13 years, I think. I remembered it fondly. It's always stuck out to me as a movie that seemed like it was too ahead of its time. Mm-hmm. This is sort of like a cynical take on the power of media and how dangerous having that power is and how it creates an environment that sort of breeds corruption and how one person's tragedy is often other people's opportunity. Kirk Douglas, I think, is great in this, very sinister, yet still has a leading man type charm about him. The depths that he will sink to in this movie sort of keep unfolding as the movie goes along. Just when you think you have the main character figured out, it goes a little darker. Mm-hmm. And in that, I think it's a fun ride. Probably my personal favorite Wilder movie. And furthermore, probably my personal favorite Kirk Douglas performance. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I still enjoyed it all these years later. But yeah, Justin.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on Ace in the Hole?
Yeah, so this is my second time to see it. I watched it Probably around the first time that you watched it, because I think you told me about it.
Yeah, that sounds right.
You're like, I watched this movie, check it out. It's really cool, really interesting. And I'd say that's correct. It is really interesting. It's very dark, more dark than I was used to older films, especially older black and white films, being more dark and cynical than I expected from Billy Wilder, which at that point I probably knew him as the director of Some Like It Hot and Sabrina.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'd seen Sunset Boulevard or Double Indemnity or The Apartment at that point.
I would say this movie's darker than all of those things.
Yeah, I would guess so. Because it's very dark and it's very cynical.
Mean. It's a mean movie.
Yeah. And it's, pretty prophetic, as you said. Like, I think it's, well, you said it's ahead of its time, but kind of the same thing, right?
Sure.
Because I think, I think that it applies as much today as it ever did. And I think, I can't speak to what the media was like in the 50s or late 40s when this was probably being written.
I imagine newspapers were very, very powerful.
Yeah. But I can only imagine that has gotten worse. And so this movie feels more and more relevant as I imagine it will as time goes on.
It may not be newspapers that are wielding that kind of power today, but news outlets are still doing that.
Yeah, and I think there's a part of me too that watched a lot of this movie, even extending that message beyond media to today's landscape, and just generally thinking about the themes of when it's of the interest of the corporation or people that are stand to make money off of something, the issue is not likely to be solved in the most efficient manner because that takes money out of people's pockets.
Right.
And I think you can target that in media. Like it's not in their interest to present the facts.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Just the facts, the, opinion and emotion sells. Right.
Right.
And, what is he says in this movie, right? That, good news is no news. Is that this movie?
Possibly. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, because I maybe I'm getting it mixed up with the Bob Dylan one. Because in the Bob Dylan one that we did last week, he says, the truth doesn't sell. The boring stuff. So like, there's a bit of overlap. So I'm a little worried that I mixed them up some, but. I'm all here for like the theme of this movie, and I love it for tackling it. And to me, that's one of the interesting things about going back to older films and not just being stuck watching like the most recent stuff of the last like several decades or since we've been alive.
Right.
Is going back and seeing these themes and messages that were problems then. And this movie is one of the best examples I can think of in terms of going back and being like, yep, this just straight up applies today. Like everything to a T.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think, like you said, Kirk Douglas is really great in it. I think it's a pretty depressing watch most of the time. Which I just say that for anybody like I was for like going, I'm going to check out another Billy Wilder movie. I loved Some Like It Hot.
Yeah. I mean, for another great comedy.
Yeah. I think it's pretty tough to watch just because like the things that are going on are terrible. But I think the movie is shot relatively well. Like, I don't know that it blew my mind in terms of a cinematography standpoint, although there is one particular shot. I
think there's a couple banger shots in here. I think the final shot rules.
Yes. Final shot is good. And surprising. Like, I kind of expect a cutaway to like a more final composition.
Yeah.
But the fact that it just kind of happens and it's a little sloppy and ugly.
But yeah, it's ugly, but also the composition still like I don't know. So good at the same time.
Yeah. Well, it's I think there's a wide angle lens distorting our perspective. I don't know if that loud thunder just got picked up, but maybe that'll work like some nice ambience for some people if it did. But I think they're shooting with like a wide angle lens on the ground for that. So he does appear very like far away, and you see him like head to toe in frame, and you the floor and the ceiling above him. And he falls. And so there's this, and his head ends up like right in front of the camera. But because of the wide angle lens, like the way that warps your perspective,
right?
That fall is crazy looking.
Yeah.
So it's very impactful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, and I think the other one that sticks out to me is there's a shot of everybody getting off the train when the train is there's like a Leo Minosa Express or whatever it's called, the train that's taking people specifically there. There's this wide panning shot of everybody running off the train and like running towards the mountain. And that shot to me just felt like, I don't know, it almost felt like something you'd see in like There Will Be Blood or whatever.
Yeah, this movie kind of, it feels akin to that movie somehow, and I don't know why. It feels like it feels like, I don't know. I was on Cinemusts last week for listeners who didn't listen to last week's episode where I talked about it. And I reviewed McCabe and Mrs. Miller, a movie that I tried to get us to review on this for our 1970s episode, but no one went for it. So I got to watch it with him over there on Cinemusts. But anyways, it feels sort of like it's in conversation with each other, those two movies, McCabe and Mrs. Miller and this movie. They both feel like very cynical sort of takes on America's values, what America is founded on, you know? I don't know. It's interesting. It just feels like, I don't know, maybe I'm just been seeking out kind of cynical, dark movies lately without realizing it, but...
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have remembered that McCabe and Mrs. Miller is cynical and dark.
You wouldn't have?
Well, I mean, I just don't remember much about it from having seen it. But that's not necessarily what comes to mind. But this movie I remembered. Like, I knew what I was in for.
Yeah. Well, this movie feels like so one of a kind also. I was actually going through YouTube looking for some special features and looking for just kind of anyone talking about this movie. And Spike Lee, apparently, throughout the years has been a big supporter of this movie. Yeah,
he has like an afterward sort of thing on the Criterion edition that I watched. It's like 5 or 6 minutes.
Yeah, I think I watched that. And in it, he talks about how this movie and I think he brings up Face in the Crowd, right? With Andy Griffith?
Yes, yeah.
And he talks about how those movies really got it right. Really were able to like put their finger like on just the right point of like what the danger that is the media and how it can be wielded against people. I was actually also watching an interview, TCM interview with Brad Bird, the director of the Incredibles movies and Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, amongst others. And in it, they were actually talking about how, you know, like reporters, we give them a lot of power because in any healthy democracy, news, media, reporters are necessary. We rely on them to point out things, you know. But in giving them that power, it also opens us up to a lot of danger when that power is mishandled. Right? And that this movie, I think, was trying to highlight that, I think, way before people were talking about that kind of thing. You know, sure. I mean, people were probably always talking about that kind of thing, but movies weren't talking about that kind of thing. Not really. And I don't know. I mean, we talked about earlier, I said this movie feels like ahead of its time. I think that's true, and I think it was. I think this movie would have been right at home in the 70s
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But in the 50s, audiences didn't know what to make of this, and they didn't turn out for it, right? And apparently Billy Wilder had to use a lot of goodwill that he got from Sunset Boulevard to make this movie. It bombed, and then he was sort of in director jail for a while and got no money from this movie until his next movie was a hit, and then they took all his money from that movie and said it was because Ace in the Hole made no money. So,
well, what a bummer for him.
I know this movie kind of set him back a while, but on the flip side of that, Wilder also said that it was the best movie he made.
Yeah, I might argue that it's the most important.
Yeah, I mean, maybe to him that feels like the same thing, you know?
Yeah. It's this isn't really time for the conversation, but yeah, it's not my favorite Wilder personally. But
what is your favorite Wilder?
Some Like It Hot.
Really?
I just will probably 9 times out of 10 lean for a comedy and a good time over like depressing cynicism. At least when it comes to like favorites. But yeah, so that's I guess like that's why I say it's probably his most important, because I think these themes are really good. And then like speaking of the 70s, it does have like a similar tone to like Network, or similar message as Network. And I feel like there's an earnestness to this movie that it has for being made at the time. Whereas I feel like this story now, and even by like the 70s with the Network, we've approached satire in handling these sort of stories.
Right.
And this film, to me, I don't think it has a tone of satire to it. I don't know how you feel about that, but it feels like it's telling it as a pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's satirizing anything. More so just pointing out blatantly that humans are bad in this way. You know?
Yeah.
You know, the family of people in the movie that shows up and they have a camper behind their car. Like they're going on vacation somewhere. Like they get totally sidetracked on their vacation with this news story of this guy trapped under a mountain. All because they happened to be around when it happened and they saw it on the news. They saw it in the newspaper, you know? Yeah. And I guess they just never leave because like later they're on the news talking about how they were the first ones there.
Yeah. Arguing.
Yeah,
arguing.
The first ones
there, right? Because they don't want anyone else
trying to make sure everyone knows that they were there first, that is important to them to know that. And then they proceed to advertise their business.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself right there, like there's a tragedy going on. One man is dying. And really what people are really concerned about is what is their proximity to this event that other people know about. Like we all know this event is happening. I want to be involved somehow. How can I insinuate myself into this story?
Yeah. What can I get out of it?
Right. And even the people who aren't getting like directly rich from this thing, like the sheriff and like Chuck Tatum or the wife, even like the regular man, they're not really interested in getting him out. They want a happy end to the story, but really they just want to be a part of something. And I think there's a certain ugliness in that
yeah.
That Wilder is just really just like shining a light directly in your face, being like, people are pretty crappy in this way. Doesn't this ring true?
Sure. Yeah. Because, you know, there's a clear bad guy in Chuck Tatum, right?
Right.
A guy he's very easy to see his flaws and his manipulation and his sort of taking advantage nature. But I think maybe the harder thing to see is that he's providing people a product that they're buying.
Yeah, right? He's just giving them what they want.
Yeah, he can't force people to buy. It can't force us as humans to get wrapped up in this story. He's just taking advantage of the fact that it does. So, yeah, I was going to ask you about that, actually. It was like how if you feel this movie is also very condemning of like everybody who shows up to party
I think it's,
and have like
yeah,
a
I think
circus.
so. I think it's condemning our nature in the sense that like how people seek out their relationship to chaos, like a big sad event, the way people make it about themselves, the way like our relationship with tragedy, right? Like very few of us who get involved in these stories actually feel anything other than like how it relates to us and our own unique lens through the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. It just feels like what movies in the 50s were making that kind of point, you know, and no wonder audiences didn't latch onto it. It's not exactly fun, I guess, to go to the movies and point out that like, hey, you know, when you're interested in dark stuff, that's probably not a good quality, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know as far as like, you know, things in the 50s that were being made. I guess by the late 50s, you might be getting into more like foreign stuff that's saying a lot, that I can think of. And maybe like Sam Fuller.
Yeah. Sam Fuller was always ahead of his time.
Doing stuff in the 50s.
Yeah.
But I think more people will certainly have heard of Billy Wilder than Sam Fuller for a reason.
Yeah, for sure.
Just that reason, right? That not many people were successful.
Yeah, Billy Wilder walked the line of doing something like this every now and then, but then doing, you know, big movies like Some Like It Hot and big studio movies that made money. So
that's right. Yeah. So towards the end of the movie, I was a little uncertain what his plan was, but when he was giving the wife the fur, was he trying to kill her? Was he like literally about to murder her when she stabs him?
I don't think he was going to, but maybe. I mean, she certainly feared like he was going to. Yeah,
I'm not sure that she could have known, and stabbing him makes perfect sense in that scenario.
Right. Yeah, I don't blame her for doing what she did. I mean, I wouldn't put it past him. He's not in a very good state there. I think he's taking out his anger at himself on her, though.
Yeah.
I think it's misplaced.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's, if I'm going to criticize something about the movie, because I don't think there's much to criticize here, because it's pretty darn perfect, is that when that was going on, is like, that feels like a, like, I don't know how we get there. Like, I understand that he's upset and he's taking out his rage on her, but like, if he was like trying to murder her, I was like, that feels a bit too much of a step into melodrama for me.
No, but I don't think he would have gotten there necessarily, but I mean, who's to say? I think at that point he's feeling compounding guilt for having slept with her and then having basically just slowly murdered this guy.
Yeah.
You know, and I think he's dealing with the fallout of that. So who's to say? I don't know. But what I will say is once he is stabbed, it feels like a situation where he had one of two options, which is go to the doctor or deliberately don't go to the doctor.
Yeah.
And it felt like once he stopped choking her, he was like, you know what, that's fine. I think I'll just ride this stab wound out and I'll just die.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. That felt like a decision that he had to have made a few times over to finally get to where we are at the end. Like, through several points, he had to stop and be like, yeah, I guess I'm not going to go to the doctor.
Yeah. And do you think he feels that that's probably because he desers?
I don't know. I don't know that he's processing it that way. Maybe he is. But I think what he knows also is that he might as well, because I don't know that it's that he feels bad about what he did. I think that might be part of it. But I think part of it is also, I fucked this up. This was probably my last chance of making it. this story doesn't have a good ending. It's not going to have the effect that I ultimately wanted it to. And then the scrutiny is going to start coming down once people start asking questions of like, why exactly did you try to drill through a mountain instead of getting him out of there the other way?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's no, you know what I mean? Like, it was only a matter of time before not only did the story not have a happy ending, that people knew exactly what he did and his part in it.
Mm-hmm.
So it felt like more of like a giving up in general rather than like, I feel bad and I deserve this, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, because I was definitely unsure, you know, because he definitely, after that moment, starts trying to do the right things, you know, like getting the priest for him finally.
When he drove to the church, I remember thinking, what, is he finding religion? What is happening? And then whenever he takes the priest out, you're like, oh, okay, that feels right.
Yeah. That shot where he pulls up to the church and then we linger on the kids getting in the car and like messing with his car until he comes back out.
Is he about to get his car stolen?
Yeah. This is interesting. Like, I'm not sure that I can attribute any meaning to it. Other than just maybe the sort of like vulture, like swarming on something they find interesting sort of nature.
I think it's more, to me, it has more to do with what state of mind he's in at the moment. Which is that he's able to just leave his car door open with like locals, like, you know, locals just around that. And he doesn't seem to care or mind, you know, he just, at this point, he seems like he's on a mission and he's kind of abandoning all, self-preservation, you know, caring about things like that. He just zips up his jacket and just keeps the course, you know? Yeah,
that makes sense. I was really fascinated by that in terms of like a choice to not cut away to inside the church and him, you know, nothing of him running in there and being like, you know, priest, come on. I need you to come now, or nothing like that. We just hold on that shot of the kids. And then he comes out with the priest and kind of skip over that whole scene.
Right.
That's an interesting choice to me. Interesting in a good way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sad to know that, like, this guy who was trapped under a mountain, if Kirk Douglas, if the media hadn't inserted itself into everything, he probably would have made it. Like, he maybe would have been down there, like, 3 days, you know?
And I think less than that, because then when they were talking about bracing the walls, well, I guess he was trapped for maybe a day at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, he was.
They say they can brace the walls in like 10, 12 hours.
Right. Like Kirk Douglas had to get a bunch of people to come home early from the rattlesnake hunt or whatever it was because everyone was gone. So he was able to get the sheriff back a little early and the doctor and get the crews working, I think, a little earlier than they would have been.
Yeah. I understood it to be like less than 2 days.
Right.
He'd have been out of there.
Yeah, he'd have been out of there in like 3 days tops, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of sad because, like, I think on one level, Kirk Douglas believed that this guy was going to make it. You know, Chuck Tatum believed that Leo under that mountain was going to make it through this whole thing and he would recover.
Yeah.
But but he plays so irresponsibly and fast and loose with it and so selfishly that it's kind of like he's sort of like a metaphor for like the media in general. It's like we think of the media as like, yeah, when there's a tragedy or a horrible event, we want all the eyes on it possible. Right? We want everyone to know when there's a national crisis, when someone's in danger, so the public attention can get behind it and goodwill can prevail. And I think what this movie shows is like that's not always the best thing. Sometimes a lot of attention on one specific thing just brings a lot more cooks into the kitchen and muddies the waters to where it's not a straight line from just getting someone out of there. Sometimes it's probably better for the right people to just do the jobs they need to do. And you don't need to know about everything that happens. You know, right. I think this movie's sort of positing that question, but like, where's that line at? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I, like I said earlier, like I zoom out to like see that as more of a indictment of capitalism as a whole, of like
the
like
idea of news for profit. Yeah,
news for profit, or health insurance for or medical care for profit, right?
Right.
Like when someone stands to make money, and their best way of making money is not helping people to the most like efficient maximum level possible,
right,
then you're just going to have problems. You're just inviting this sort of situation, corruption, where like somebody's going to get hurt because it's the best way to make money,
right,
is for someone to be screwed over.
Yeah,
and you can apply that to anything.
Right. And then like once the newspaper man makes an informal deal with the local lawman, then all of a sudden you have compounding issues. Right? Because then all of a sudden it's not just the newspaper reporter that has an interest in this. It's the sheriff who has a vested interest in making sure this takes a little longer. They drag their feet just a little bit more. And everyone wants their little piece, you know? And that's how it starts. That's how it happens.
Yeah, the contractor has to go along with it, with the promise of more work, right?
Right. Otherwise, he's going to be demoted, and the sheriff might not get reelected, and then like so on and so forth. It's just like there's a whole bunch of like once people start getting involved into this thing.
Yeah. Once you start bringing profit and like the ability to make money off of something,
right?
You're pretty much immediately forcing yourself into way like what's the best way to maximize profit, whether that's
that's the biggest question.
Yeah whether that's making something take longer, whether that's making something, you know, whether that's screwing over an individual in terms of paying them less, you know.
Right.
I think that's one of the great things about this movie too, is that like while it's very specifically about media, there's a much grander theme at work, like and to me the dangers of capitalism versus like what people need and the care that people need. And maybe that's like my own personal, you know, politics and
well, I think it can be both, right? I think it is your personal politics, but also that doesn't mean it's not in the text of the movie.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that's what I always remember this movie for too, right? Because it has been a long time since I've seen it as well, and I didn't remember the details, but the idea that stuck with me and what I knew I was in for was this cynical story of like a journalist intentionally making a situation worse to make the story more interesting and better.
Right.
That's the one aspect of this movie. The details were all very fuzzy going back into this. I didn't remember the wife character necessarily. Didn't remember the sheriff character. That major theme is what...
Him and his little pet rattlesnake.
Yeah. Which he fed chewing gum with the wrapper on.
I know. And he kept leaving that box just like open, sort of. I was like, man, that thing's going to crawl out of that box and you're going to have a rattlesnake loose in this building.
Yeah. Which I don't know if that's supposed to be, you know, a metaphor. Like you have a dangerous situation contained until it's not. But
yeah, I mean, maybe. It's certainly, that's what I was thinking about for a long time, whenever that was happening.
That never really came to fruition that I can recall. That's sort of, if you want to call it a Chekhov's gun.
Yeah, just
of a
this
rattlesnake.
guy's fast and loose safety policies.
Yeah. I don't really know. But I did expect something to pay off with that rattlesnake for that reason. Because that's what it was to me. I was like, it's just, it represents the situation that is currently contained, but could very easily not be. And once it's done,
but only in this thin little box. Yeah.
It's a thin box between a rattlesnake being loose around a bunch of people.
Yeah. I know. And Kirk Douglas just sits down at that table, not even paying it. My eyes would not have left that box.
Yeah. I wouldn't have sat down at the table.
No, but if I did,
I've been like, let's talk over here.
Yeah, let's talk away from that box with that snake in it that you have.
Yeah.
All right.
I wouldn't go near.
Anyways, do we have any other points we want to make about Ace in the Hole?
Do you think Herbie, is that the kid's name? I think so. Like the photographer? Do you think he got his job back?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. I think the newspaper man seems like a good guy who would understand that he was manipulated.
I think once Kirk Douglas strolls into that office and then falls down the floor and dies, I think they will understand that guy had a pretty eventful week and that Kirk Douglas maybe wasn't being the best boss. So, yeah.
So that's one thing I was thinking about. It's like, man, I hope Herbie got his job back because he's just manipulated.
Yeah.
By someone with a lot of charisma.
Yep. Someone you can't say no to.
Yeah. But yeah, that was my last thing.
Cool. So now is it time to choose our movies?
Yes. Time to do our next poll. As we said in the beginning, the listeners, you, gets to choose our Criterion films that we cover each episode. And we've been doing the decades. We've been going through the decades. This was our 1950s film. Next, we're going reverse chronological order. So our next one is going to be 1940s film. With that, Mike, do you want to pick your first choice or do you want me to go first? I feel like you've been going first. Maybe that's how we break
I have, but only because my name is usually first in the notes.
Yeah, because you went first when we first started doing this, and it's just always stayed.
Yeah, and we keep using the same template, so.
Yeah, copy paste.
All right, so go first. Justin, kick us off. What movie do you want us to vote on first from the 1940s?
Okay. I'm going to go with a lesser-known film first. It probably won't win, but on the off chance that we get to review this movie, I would be delighted because it's one of my favorite films. I think it's really undersung, and it had such a huge impact on me when I first watched it that when I took a screenwriting class, my first screenwriting class in college, you were there, you were in the class. I wrote my whole script was a screwball comedy that was basically me imagining this main character.
Yeah, that was my favorite thing you ever wrote.
Was it?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Well, that's a story for a whole other podcast or a whole other time that probably no one ever wants to hear. But the movie is Preston Sturges' Unfaithfully Yours, starring Rex Harrison.
Nice.
Which is, for those who don't know, it's a film about a famous orchestra conductor. And he suspects that his wife is cheating on him because he's very, very, very insecure. And he has a private eye tell him that she, was missing from her room in the middle of the night. So without giving away too much, you watch him do 3 performances, and in each performance you go into his head to see him fantasize about the way that he's going to reveal to his wife that he knows that she's been cheating on him. And it's hilarious and funny and definitely probably like in my top 20 movies of all time. I think it's really great and underseen. So Unfaithfully Yours.
Awesome. Cool. I have only seen that movie that one time, I believe. So
I've shown it to maybe 3 other people since then.
Yeah, I remember you watched it a lot. You were a big fan of it. So
yeah, huge fan.
Yeah, exciting.
It's not going to win, but what if it did?
Yeah. What if it did? It might win. We don't know. We just got to pick 3 lesser known movies than that one.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Well, let's see what you do,
okay.
Mike.
All right, so I'm choosing a film that I have not seen, but I've always heard of, and that is Jacques Tournier's, I don't know how you say his last name, I'm sorry, Cat People.
Okay.
Yeah, I've always heard of Cat People. It's a big famous movie from the 40s. Never seen it. Feels important. Feels like I should watch it. So,
yeah, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen Cats.
Yeah. Do you have to watch Cats before Cat People?
I've seen The Cat in the Hat. I don't know where that falls chronologically.
Yeah. We'll have to get the timeline.
Yeah. I've seen That Darn Cat.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I've seen, let's see.
I don't know a thing about this movie, so I'm just riffing here.
I'm trying to think of movies with cat in it, but I think the joke's run its course, so I'm just going to stop. But anyway, yeah, Probably. Cat People.
Yeah.
So, Justin, what is your second film that you are choosing from the 1940s.
All right. Second film. I'm going with a bigger one just so that people have the opportunity to vote for, bigger films and not just like random films and maybe get excited, because we hit some sort of big milestone movie. But I'm going to go with another film that I think had a really, really big impact on me in terms of just admiring a straightforward film. A realist film, a neo-realist film, an Italian neo-realist film, if you follow where I'm at. But that is, it's Vittorio De Sica. I'm probably not saying that correctly. His Bicycle Thieves.
Oh, yeah. This will probably win.
It probably will.
This feels like if you had to, ask anyone who just found out about the Criterion Collection what kind of movies were in the Criterion Collection, they'd be like, The Bicycle Thieves.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was definitely an early one that caught my eye,
right,
while browsing them, and one that I watched pretty early on and diving into foreign classic films specifically.
Yeah,
but I mean, it certainly had an effect on me in terms of just like a straightforward real movie and made around a time when I was seeing a bunch of other studio films. Like black and white studio stuff where, there's maybe hammy acting and transatlantic accents going off.
Transatlantic accidents, yeah.
Accidents. That was A Night to Remember. It was the transatlantic accident.
It was a Night to Remember.
But okay, yeah, Bicycle Thieves, a classic, a big one. That's my second choice. What's yours, Mike?
Groovy. All right, cool. Well, I was going to choose a smaller film, but then I remembered you and I had a conversation about choosing bigger films.
Yeah.
So I chose my small one, even though I don't think Cat People is necessarily a small one. But I'm going to choose a big one now.
Okay.
And this will also give me an excuse to watch a 4K disc that I have not yet cracked open to watch, and that is Orson Welles' Citizen Kane.
Ooh. Yes.
I know you recently reviewed this, but I want to break open my disc and watch it. So,
yeah, sure. Yeah, this was before it was announced on Criterion, and right before I think Mank came out.
Oh yeah,
you and former and future co-host Chris, who hasn't been on in a while, were both busy, so I had a guest on to review Citizen Kane. Just to do it. It wasn't a Criterion, but now we can kind of, I think, cover it in the context of Criterion, and do it with a official host of the show, not just a guest.
And I guess you can always link to that episode too in the in the notes.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I love Citizen Kane. I watched the 4K disc when we reviewed it. Oh no, I didn't, because it wasn't out yet on Criterion. But I have watched it since when I got it, and it is it's good looking.
Dang.
So I would love. Well, Citizen Kane's going to win.
You think so? I feel like Criterion fans will go for Bicycle Thieves, but I don't know. I guess it's not just Criterion fans that'll see Citizen Kane and then vote for it.
Yeah, if we could somehow target just Criterion fans, but they might be like hipstery and choose Unfaithfully Yours or Cat People, though.
That's true.
So
anyways, I don't know. You're probably right, but. Anyways, I'm sorry if I'm making you watch Citizen Kane again if it wins.
No. I love Citizen Kane. And with its dominance over polls, I feel like I've noticed more and more young people, young my age and younger, saying Citizen Kane's not as good as they say it is, and maybe that's fair enough.
But
when
no
it tops
movie could
the
be
greatest
as good is the number one movie of all time. Anytime any movie gets that moniker, there's no way it's that good.
Exactly, yeah.
Movies can't be that good by the virtue of what they are.
Yeah, but I love Citizen Kane. I think it's fantastic. I think it's great. I think it holds up. So.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. So I'm excited to see it again. This will be I don't even know how many times I've seen it. But
yeah, I've seen it so many times I've lost count for sure.
Yeah, I bet this is maybe my 10th time, 9th time. I don't know.
Yeah, it's probably something like that for me too. But okay, but that's it. So as I said, go to Twitter/X @CasualCinecast is our handle on there. Go there, vote. That's the only place to vote. You don't got to go anywhere else. You don't need to go anywhere else.
Nope.
Just there.
Long as you call it Twitter, not X, though.
Yeah. I say Twitter/X. I don't know why.
Yeah, we got a dead name Elon's stupid website.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, but yeah, the link should also be in the show notes, so you can click on it from there too. But with that, Mike, are we done with this episode?
We are.
All right. Well, thank you, listeners, so much for listening. As always, thanks Jake Wagner Russell for doing our intro and outro music. If you want to hear more of his music, go to soundcloud.com/bobscotch.
Go home. The circus is over.
Wow.
That is the line, right?
I think so. Yeah. Which I thought was going to be the end of the movie, briefly.
I know. The way he says it's so cool. He's like, the circus is over. He's like so disgusted.
Yeah. Who
Kirk
is it that said
Douglas.
that?
What a
Was it
presence.
Kirk Douglas?
What?
Kirk Douglas says that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Not to dive into it too much, but I'm like, you caused the circus, buddy.
Yeah, I know.
Why are you saying it like that?
I know. I think he's disgusted at what he wrought.
Yeah, he was targeting himself, but okay.
Anyways.
We're done with discussion on that
Yeah.
movie.
Let's open that interview back up, or the review up. There's more time. There's more to talk about.
Yeah. Okay, well, do you want to tell people about the next episode, Mike?
It might be the 1940s episode, whatever wins the poll that we just discussed, or, God willing, if Justin has time, might go see what... Oh, Alien Romulus.
Alien Romulus.
Yeah. It'll fit
If
right
there's
in with our
time.
Criterion movies.
I don't know if we'll have enough time.
Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah. But until then, I'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.